On Thursday at the World Economic Forum in Davos, US President Donald Trump oversaw the launch and signing of his new Board of Peace, originally proposed as a governance and reconstruction board for Gaza, but has grown into something much bigger. Its $1 billion joining fee, seemingly indefinite chairmanship by Trump, and inclusion of figures like Belarus's President Lukashenko has divided the world, sparking fears that Trump is trying to build his own personal rival to the United Nations. So in this video, we're going to explain what the Board of Peace actually is, why Trump looks set to dominate it, who's in, who's out, and why. We're in the process of clearing out our store, so we're running a fire sale right now. Using code FIRESALE, you can get 40% off all of our posters, notebooks, calendars, magnets, keyrings, Brexit the Colouring Book, the lot. That offer ends very soon, so click the link in the description for more. It's worth beginning with a reminder of what the Board of Peace was originally intended to be. It originated out of Trump's 20-point peace plan for Gaza, which was signed in October and later endorsed by the UN Security Council in November. Point 9 stated that Gaza would temporarily be governed by a technocratic Palestinian committee, which itself would be overseen by a new international transitional body called the Board of Peace, to be headed by Trump. The board would set the framework and handle the funding for the redevelopment of Gaza until the Palestinian Authority had completed its reforms and was able to securely and effectively take back control of Gaza, with UN authorization of the board in place through to the end of 2027. But the Charter of the Board of Peace, that was sent out as an invitation to dozens of world leaders this month, looks really quite different. For starters, the Charter makes no specific mention of Gaza or Palestine, suggesting that Trump envisions this board taking on a much more expansive remit. The Charter describes the Board of Peace as an international organization that seeks to promote stability, restore dependable and lawful governance, and secure enduring peace in areas affected or threatened by conflict. The Charter establishes Donald Trump as the board's inaugural chairman and US representative, with extensive decision-making powers. It specifically names Trump as the chairman, rather than tying its position to the role of the US president. Membership of the board is by invitation of the chairman, and Trump appears to have near total control of how long he can serve for, and who his successor will be, with the Charter establishing that the replacement of the chairman may only occur following resignation or as the result of incapacity, as to be determined by a unanimous vote by the executive board, at which time the chairman's designated successor will immediately assume the position. With no mention of term limits or tie-in with the presidency, it appears that Trump could continue serving as chairman even after he leaves the White House. Member states serve a 3-year term on the board, which can be renewed by Trump, or they can secure a permanent seat if they contribute more than $1 billion in cash funds to the board within the first year. While the board's members are states, Trump has also named a founding executive board, whose members are US Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, Trump's son-in-law and former advisor Jared Kushner, former British Prime Minister Tony Blair, billionaire financier Mark Rowan, World Bank President AJ Banger, and US Deputy National Security Advisor Robert Gabriel. A separate 11-member Gaza Executive Board will carry out the originally envisioned role of overseeing the Palestinian Technocratic Committee for Gaza's governance and redevelopment. As for the Board of Peace itself, though, Trump has invited around 60 countries, including the EU, from around the world to be founding members, though Central America and Africa might well feel overlooked. The inclusion of the likes of Russia's President Vladimir Putin and Belarus's President Alexander Lukashenko has raised some concerns among prospective members. More than 20 countries, however, have already said yes, including, but not limited to, friends of Trump, like Argentina and Hungary, countries with a natural interest in Gaza's future, like Egypt, Jordan, Turkey, and Saudi Arabia, and countries that have been involved in Trump's past peace efforts, like Armenia and Azerbaijan. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has also said yes, despite having criticized the makeup of the Gaza Executive Committee. Netanyahu was unable to attend the signing ceremony in Switzerland, however, owing to the ICC warrant for his arrest. A variety of concerns have prompted many countries to hold off on joining or turn down the invitation altogether. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky, for example, has raised concern about the inclusion of Russia and Belarus. It's worth pointing out, though, that Russia hasn't yet decided, although Belarus has said yes, a further sign of the easing of Lukashenko's international isolation. The UK has held off on joining for now, citing concerns about Putin's invitation and the much broader remit of the board beyond its initial Gaza focus. France has declined the invitation, pointing to Trump's extensive powers and the board's broad remit, which raises, quote, serious questions about undermining the UN. Similarly, Ireland, Norway, Slovenia, and Sweden have turned down their invitations too, and other European countries like Germany and Italy have downplayed their chances of joining, with Italy suggesting that the board's charter could be incompatible with the Italian constitution. The concern that runs through all of this is that Trump is trying to build a rival to the UN system, which, despite its flaws, has underpinned the last 80 years of global cooperation, conflict prevention, and mediation. Imagine you're France, or Russia for example. Would you really want to undermine the UN framework that provides you with veto power and a permanent seat on the UN Security Council to the benefit of a new structure where power lies almost entirely with US President Donald Trump? Unsurprisingly, so far none of the other permanent Security Council members have said yes. Even the Board of Peace's logo is a little bit on the nose. It's suspiciously similar to the UN's emblem, except for rather than displaying the whole world, the Board of Peace's logo is centered squarely on the US. Now, Trump has said that the Board of Peace would work in conjunction with the United Nations, saying that the UN has great unrealized potential. However, it's fair to be a bit skeptical, given Trump's repeated criticism of the UN and the withdrawal from dozens of UN entities, not to mention the concerns that the $1 billion membership fee could sap much-needed funding from the already struggling UN. Critics have also raised the alarm about the potential for corruption. While a US official has said that the board will implement the highest financial controls and oversight mechanisms, the reality is that we're talking about billions of dollars being paid by governments into a fund that Trump himself will presumably have significant control over. Trump and co haven't exactly helped to dispel these concerns, with the hyping up of Gaza's real estate potential and placing of several real estate magnates and investors on the board, like Yakir Gabe, Steve Witkoff, and Jared Kushner, the latter of whom unveiled the board's luxury vision for Gaza at a Thursday event. Ultimately though, whatever the board ends up being and doing, it's hard not to see the charter as an attempt to codify not just American dominance, but Trump's dominance on the world stage. Now, you're probably looking to follow this story as it develops, but how are you supposed to keep track of which outlets online are actually trustworthy, and which are just fabricating a false narrative for you to follow? Well, that's where our sponsor this week, Ground News, comes in. That's because Ground News is a website and app that helps you to make sense of the complex and ever-changing media landscape. Now, things can get increasingly overwhelming, with thousands of articles being thrown at us every day, but Ground News puts all of those articles into one place, helping you to fully understand the story from start to finish. Each article even comes with a breakdown into bias distribution, factuality, and ownership of each source. For example, if we take this story on Trump launching the Board of Peace at Davos, we can see that there are 491 sources currently reporting on it, with most of the coverage coming from the center. We can even then dive into how each side is reporting on it by using their bias comparison feature, showing us that the left highlights low allied participation, while the right portrays it as a historic agreement. Our absolute favorite feature, though, is their blind spot feed. Here you can see all of the stories that you might not have seen on your feed. So even if you don't agree with the reporting, it's still good to know what's being left out of your bubble. Now, you're probably used to being fed the news that your algorithm has decided is best for you, and breaking out of that spiral is harder than ever. Ground News will do that work for you though, freeing you from the algorithmic restraints and letting you think freely again. So if you want to start questioning the narrative, instead of just consuming it, you can join Ground News today. And using our link, you'll get 40% off their unlimited access Vantage plan. All you have to do is subscribe using the link in the description. Go to ground.news/TLDR or scan the code on screen. And you'll be supporting an independent news platform working to make the media landscape more transparent.